Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this mini reunion. I was hoping the older fellows would be here, but it seems like we have just the most recent fellows or the new ones. Okay, so next slide. Okay, so for our program, we'll just do a round of introduction, then we'll talk more about the Media Fellowship from 2019 to 2021. Then we'll have a group photo. And then, as mentioned in the email, we will launch two of Gaia's latest publication and report, Back to Earth, and then Chemical Recycling of Sachet, a failed experiment. And then we'll talk about the plans for Media Fellowships this 2022 and beyond. So next slide. Okay, so I know for the three fellows here, we just saw each other a few weeks ago, but let us share something new about you since we last saw each other. So just introduce yourself, your name, and something new about you. Maybe we can start with Job.
Hello everyone. Hi, I'm Joe Manahan and I am a writer for ABS-CBN News Digital. And I last saw you guys, I think last month, around December. Yeah, yeah, in po. Hello everyone. Glad to be here.
Thanks, Job. And then Israel Bill.
Hello everyone, I am Israel Bal. I am from Now You Know, and what's new about me is that this semester I'm on my last semester in college. So after this, I will graduate as a structural engineer. Yay.
Good luck,
Thanks.
Israel.
Thanks, Israel Bill. So we have
Thank you.
more engineers working in media or maybe NGO. And Don,
Hi, I'm Don Peña from Bulatlat, and since we last saw each other, I took a 2 week long vacation in the province in Pampanga. So it greatly helped with everything that has been going on. That's all. Thank you.
glad to hear that. And the Gaia team, who wants to go first? Uh, Dan, Yabel, Dune, or Shibu? Dan.
Hi,
Oh,
hi
Shibu, go,
everyone.
Shibu.
Who wants to go first?
Hi everyone, and Happy New Year. I think it was a kind of a long vacation in terms of COVID as well as Christmas and New Year. I think just after Christmas and New Year, it is COVID is taking place. And yeah, the new thing. I think what I just started again writing smaller articles for local publications. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Shibu. Shibu, we're always looking for op-ed writers for Gaia. And Yobel.
Yeah, the new thing about me, I watched a Korean drama series which never happened in my life, and I ended up watching one season of yeah, a series. So that's what's new.
Thanks, Yobel. So Yobel is Gaia Asia Pacific CCE, Climate and Clean Energy Campaigner. And Dune, you'll be meeting Dune for the first time now.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Dun and I am based in Korea and I'm super curious now which Korean TV show you well watched. And I am a researcher who belongs to the Global Policy and Research team of Gaia. And I am excited about the release of the Creasolv case study, which we will be talking about today. That's new. And I'm excited about that. Nice to meet you all.
Thanks, Dune. Dan?
Hey, you already know me. I'm Dan. I'm Gaia's Asia Pacific Communications Associate. And what's new about me? I started grad school this month, and hopefully I can't find enough time to work on my website this month as well. That's all. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan. For me, what's new about me, I started teaching at the Asian Institute of Journalism and Communication, and Dan is my student. I don't know if it's fortunately or unfortunately, but we have this tandem. Whenever I break them into group, I would always tell them, come on, Dan, you have to convince them to write an investigative report on environment. And so far, we're very successful with that. So all my students will be writing about environmental issues. Okay, so next slide, please. Everyone is introduced now. Next slide. Okay, so I just want to talk about the media fellowships that we've done in the past. So this is the 2019. These are the fellows at that time. So we had fellows from Indonesia, Malaysia, and Philippines. Next slide. Okay, so I'm sure the Filipino fellows are already familiar with this presentation. So at the time, we had lectures, panel discussions, site visits on communities and local government units, and of course, a lot of camaraderie. Next slide. So this is the October 2019 Penang Media Fellowship. So at that time, other than Indonesia, Philippines, and Malaysia, we had fellows from Vietnam and Thailand. And if you see, the list is growing. Next slide. And other than lectures, panel discussions, site visits, and camaraderie, next slide, we included, we've started inviting one of the former media fellows, two of the former media fellows as speakers for that event. And then we had an exclusive media briefing for them. And also at the time, it was the International Zero Waste Cities Conference. So the media fellows were able to attend that, and they got to meet a lot of the speakers from different member organizations of Gaia. And that's also when we introduced the story teaching and the story grants. Next slide. And this is the second to the most recent media fellowship. This one is done online in Vietnam. So we had 12 fellows. Of course, all of them are from Vietnam. Next slide. So again, we had fellows as speaker, and then we had a media briefing, and then we had an exclusive launch of the public service announcement with them. They also did a virtual zero waste cities tour and story pitching. Next slide. So these are the media fellows from September to December 2021. So all of you, the journalists here, are from this media fellowship. So 10 journalists. And the next slide. So what makes this different is that instead of inviting just environment reporters, we opened it up to economic and business reporters. And this one is focused on the incineration issue. In the past, we focused on the three main campaigns of Gaia, but this one is dedicated to the incineration cement kiln issue. And then we also did the exclusive public service announcement launch and story pitching. And next slide. So the question is, what happens after the fellowship? I'm sure you're familiar with this. So we do deep dive sessions with our fellows. We invite them for exclusive media briefings and project launch, just like this one. And sometimes we also invite them to host some of our webinars, like the ones that we did with Tarakis Mundo of ABS-CBN, and then with Adi Marcela of Jakarta Post, who's now a freelance writer, and then the one with Ian McIntyre of The Vibes in Malaysia. Next slide. Okay, and then these are some of the stories from the fellowship. So we have stories that came out in Jakarta Post, Vietnam News, and then Vietnam News, they even have a company Facebook post that went with their article, and also some videos. And then we also had an article in Vice Asia. Next slide. And these are the stories from our fellows in Vietnam and the Philippines. And if you notice, I wrote it in the bottom some of the unfunded, because some of these are from the story grants that we provided, but also some of the reporters, they decided to just write the story even without a funding or from Gaia. Next slide. And last year, we also had the 2021 Gaia BFFP EP Comms Officers Fellowship. So in this fellowship, this is a 4.5-month fellowship. We had 33 communications officers from 20 member organizations of Gaia. And then we invited 40 mentors, 20 from Gaia, Breakthrough from Plastic staff, and then 20 mentors are journalists, and 13 out of the 20 mentors are former media fellows of Gaia and Breakthrough from Plastic. Next slide. I know this some reporters, so okay. Next slide. Okay, so let's have group photo before we do our launch of our two publications. Hi, Doris. Doris, I'll ask you to introduce after the group photo. And are you taking the photo? Don, maybe request you to turn on her. Okay. Oh, Doris, where are you? Oh my gosh, Doris is in a vegetarian restaurant. Okay, smile. Then are you taking? I'll take a photo and then.
Okay.
Okay. Doris,
Wait, there's
before
a
we
pop-up
proceed,
message.
we'll invite you to introduce yourself, please.
Mhm. Wait, there's a pop-up message. Okay. Go.
Don, please turn on
Please turn
Don's
on your
camera as
cameras.
well.
All right, 1, 2, 3. One more.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
All right. Thanks. Thank you.
okay. Doris, can you introduce yourself or no? She's in a meeting. So Doris joined the Media Fellowship in October 2019 in Penang, Malaysia. So she's a blogger. So she has this special blogger, and yes, and she was also one of the mentors in the Comms Officers Fellowship. So we're hoping that in the next Comms Officers Fellowship, I mean, Dawn, Job, and Israel Bell can join us and mentor some of our Comms officers. Okay, so next slide. So as I mentioned earlier, we're launching two of our publications for this year, starting off with Back to Earth Composting for Various Contexts. So we have here with us Shibu, our Gaia Asia Pacific India coordinator, and we call him our composting guru to talk about the publication. And feel free to ask questions. Shibu?
Okay. Thanks, Sonia. Can I? Okay. So, do you want me to share that document on my screen, or?
Yes, please.
Yeah. Give me a minute. Share screen. I think visible, right? Yeah. Thank you. Hi. It's a kind of an earnest effort to put together the experiences of composting in the background of Zero Waste Cities program, mostly like the campaign dominated by Gaia world over. So we are promoting source level composting or converting organic waste back into the nutrients or back into the soil. So in this background, one of the issues that like in Asia Pacific, maybe in Asia region, South Asia, and I think Asia Pacific region, if you look at the characteristics of municipal solid waste, more than 50% of waste is organic, that is compostable. So you just do segregation, you solve more than 50% of your waste problem. Like if you segregate it, then it can go for composting. And even if you are not composting, you just let it on the open, it will get composted. So that is the kind of a, what you call the climatic zone in which we are living. So this is the kind of a reality, but for some reason, our like officials or cities are spending too much of money and or wasting too much of resources on drying this up and burning this in waste to energy facilities, and then claiming that they are modern or they are scientific. So, and we have seen that many communities, individuals, organizations across the globe, and especially in the Southeast Asia and Asia Pacific region, people have showcased a kind of a what do you call different types of models of like how to deal with the organic waste in our day-to-day life. So this book, Back to Earth: Composting for Various Contexts, is actually kind of a compilation of different models of composting existing on ground, from like in the urban scenario, in the rural scenario, and in places where people have a luxury of space and people where people do not have that luxury of space. So there are different types of composting is being described in this book. And it also gives a context why we should compost. So why we should compost, it's not just about managing the waste, it is all about maintaining the cycle of nutrients in nature, as well as it is a climate campaign. Like this is something which is a kind of a climate solution to prevent methane escaping into the atmosphere. It's a campaign against global warming, as well as it is a carbon sequestration process, because this compost brings back some carbon back to soil. So in that sense, this book gives, and this book is meant for people who are working with local communities, or the zero waste campaigners, or people who are trying to help their cities or their neighborhood to set up, manage their organic waste. So in that way, this book is being designed in that way, and where the chapters are divided in such a way that one, it gives the context why it is why we are composting, and the second part we are like looking at the basics of composting, like the basic science. If you understand the basic science, you can manage any type of compost, and it's all about like practicing. It is not just about theory. And in the next part, we are discussing almost 20 different types of composting collected from different parts of the places in Asia Pacific region, and like from minimum cost composting methods to the high cost what you call high tech composting methods are described, and how those things are working. And there is a kind of a brief introduction about anaerobic digestion as well in this book. And this book ends with a kind of a strategy discussion on our strategy or policy requirement for managing waste or managing organics. So this is a kind of a general introduction to this book, and this also gives a couple of case studies from different parts of Asia Pacific. The book is designed in an illustrated way, so that you can also understand the designs, how it is being managed, and how you can actually set up. So this is mostly what the Gaia team is trying to it's not just about promotion, it's all about like inspiring people to start composting, because composting is a kind of a very important activity that has to be part of our life and lifestyle. It's a kind of it's our duty and responsibility to the environment, and it is our duty and responsibility to the climate and the humankind. So in that way, the book is something which is to inspire people to start composting if they haven't started it. And I think you can actually just go through this book once it is released, and it gives all troubleshooting mechanisms. So it's a kind of A to Z about how to set up, like even how to plan the size of a compost pit based on your waste quantity. So all these things are given in this book. And I think this is it. So there are stories from ground, there's stories from Melbourne, and there is a story from Malaysia, there is story from India. So we have different case studies, and it is not a kind of a the book. There are different sets of publications are coming up, and we also would like people to add their own stories to their own experiences and their own stories of composting, the way they do. So composting is a kind of a technique which can be customized per person or per, like, depending upon their lifestyle. And in that way, I think this book will, so we hope that this book will inspire people to like spread or manage the compost. At least we can manage 50% of our waste at home or in our neighborhood or in our office or in our city. And I hope that this book may also help or help the people who are working with the local communities to set up composting facilities for their neighborhood. I think, thank you, and I'm open for questions, if any.
Shibu. Are there questions? Yubel is putting information in the chat box. So Dan sent the link to this new publication. So the nice thing here is we, other than talking about the different composting that our members are doing, we also talk about composting in high-rise building, if you just have a small backyard, if you own a school, if you're in a local government unit, or if you have an MRF. So really different types of composting that can be practiced by anyone. Questions? Questions from our journalists? No questions for now? No questions. So maybe after Yabel's presentation, we'll have more questions. We'll see how these two publications connect. But before that, Ian is here. Ian, would you like to introduce yourselves to our new fellows? So we have here Doris, Israel, Bill, Job, and Dawn. Hi, Ian.
Hello. Good afternoon to all and Happy New Year.
So Ian is our media fellow in Dumaguete in April 2019 and also in Penang in October 2019. And he also joined the media fellowship with Breakthrough from Plastic in the US. Okay, so let's go back to our slide. So as I mentioned, we have another publication that we're launching today. This one, so after composting, this one is on, where's your slide? Chemical recycling of sachet, a field experiment. Yubel is here with us. Yubel.
Yeah, I will share my screen if that's
Okay, please.
works. Okay. All right. Yeah, so basically what happened in Indonesia, this is a case of recycling, sachet recycling in Indonesia. And they call it chemical recycling with the brand name of the technology is Creasolv. It used to be proposed for the Philippines, but the first pilot project was initiated in Indonesia back in 2017, and this is a story of how Unilever make another claim that doesn't really work in reality. So where is this facility that are claimed to recycle sachet? First, it's in East Java. It's the heart of recycling facility, and then of Indonesia, and then it is designed to handle 700 tons of waste per year, or it's a very small amount, 2 tons per day, and it was done in 2018. And the claim stated in Unilever press release that it is designed to recycle polyethylene plastics, which sachet are made up to 60% of it. And then the plastic, they claim that it will be recovered to make another new sachet. So that's how the technology was promoted and marketed. Okay. And how does it work? How does the technology work? How does the concept work? So Unilever collects sachets, and they mobilize thousands of waste pickers, communities, through waste banks. So they don't do it by themselves. They chip in an existing system, which is waste bank. Waste bank is like a unit where people can store their waste and exchange it for some amount of money. And it's quite unique in Indonesia. And then also work with the government, local retailer, basically get everybody to help them to collect their own problem, which is the sachet. And then the community collect the sachet to this waste bank, usually through drop boxes, or they have this separate collection system only for sachet, which never existed before, and then give it back to this unit of waste bank or bank sampah. And what are these sachets looks like? Because there are a lot of different sachets. They don't, Unilever don't really clarify what kind of sachet they are talking about. First, it's usually coffee sachet. If you have coffee sachet, usually you have this multi-layered packaging with metal or aluminum foil inside it. That's one type of sachet. But also there's many different sachets that are actually collected in the drop boxes, but those are the two main item, the beverage containers and the cafe instant beverage container and cafe sachet. And it's collected this way. So if you can see that there is this waste bank, and then coming to NGO, so they also work with NGOs that work with the waste bank to gather this sachet, and then they send it to another company which help them to shred the sachet to recover the plastic. Then the shredded material is sent to a company called Trias Sentosa, where the Unilever Creasolv technology is located. So it's not a new building. They chip in into an existing industrial complex, which is the Trias Sentosa, and then they do the operation there. And the sachet, as I mentioned, there are a lot of different sachet, and Unilever never really disclosed it. The sachet recycling was actually suited for multi-layer packaging. That's what they claim. And mainly they aim for the polypropylene, the plastic layer of it, and they got it from the cooking oil pouches or the metallizer, what they call it. It's like multi-layer sachet with aluminum foil packaging or layer inside of it. But the thing is, it's really difficult to recover plastic from this multi-layer or metallizer, as they say, because they are glued and it's really thin. And when they shred it, it ended up with a lot of residual waste, and that's not practical. So they ended up collecting this cooking oil pouch, as you can see here, which are purely made from polypropylene. And as you can see, a cooking oil pot is way bigger than beverage or drink sachet, right? Powdered drink sachet. And they don't really discuss or explain which type of sachet are they dealing with. Because this polypropylene cooking oil pots, they already have their own market existingly. But now they are taking this and then they are claiming that, oh, we are recycling all kind of sachet. That's where it got misleading. And the flow of the recycling after they get this different kind of sachets from everywhere, they collect it and send it to these two companies, CV Alendra and PT Pelita Mekar Semester or PMS. They shred it with all the contaminants, all the problems, all the metals and aluminum foil. They send it to the Creasolv unit inside the Trias Sentosa industrial complex. And then they treat it by extracting this layer of plastic. But there are a lot of problem with that process because the technology itself comes from the global north, and there are no sachet there. So when they're developing this technology, they don't use sachet as their pilot project there. And then when they exported the technology to Indonesia or a developing country, they use this for sachet, and that's where the technology problem comes, because that's where we have a lot of residual waste. 40 to 60% residue are found, usually from those contaminants, the metals, the aluminum foil, the glue, and the low quality plastics. They collect it and burn it in an incinerator, and they call it recycling. This is where the biggest issue is located. And 5 truths behind the world's first sachet recycling technology you can find in the report. First, it's abrupt and silent suspension. Although they started in 2017 or 2018, after years, they claim the process was smooth, but there were no reporting, no transparency. And what we found on the ground in Sidoarjo, at least there were 6 months, at least 6 months, there was no staff, visitor, the facility was idle, And the sachet collection was actually terminated from the waste bank units in December 2019. The waste bank could not stop. The thing is, the waste bank have made this contract with Unilever to get some money when they send the sachet to Unilever Creasolv technology. But once they do the education to customers, the customer get used to the practice, and then they have to continue collecting sachet. But in reality, they don't accept any money. The sachet doesn't flow to the facility anymore because it has been terminated. So they have a pile, like piles of sachet, 2 tons at one point, that need to be sent somewhere. So where do they send it? Either they make it into eco-brick, some of them, or landfill as usual by using government's money, or burned in an incinerator within that industrial area in Sidoarjo. Second, they have this over-claim capacity and technological challenges. The fact that this technology was only able to process single layer, like the oil, cooking oil pouch, or non-metallic sachet, is the biggest deception that Unilever claim they can process everything, but the fact they only do this for single layer sachet. And the Creasolv facility need to produce 3 tons of plastic pellet per day to make it operational. Or they even have to expand to 5 tons per day to make it more feasible for commercial application. However, after the initial pilot operation, they only gathered 5 tons per month. So this is very low compared to the annual target they stated. This can be found in their Sustainability Report 2019 for Indonesia Unilever. And again, 40 to 60% of the sachet that was claimed to be successfully recovered or recycled or either lost, or some of them are used to make rinso packaging. It's a detergent packaging instead of new sachet packaging. So it's not coming, it's not clear whether they are making a new sachet, but what we found, which I will explain later in the last slide, they make it into rinso packaging, but it's not clear whether this is coming from Creasolv facility or they're using other type of plastic or from other recycling processes that they have in other region. And another thing, our investigation has this hint that the Creasolv unit was sent back to Germany at one point because there are technical issues when they face this multi-layered sachet issue. Third, that sachet collection is very costly. This is true for every region, every part of the world, because when you collect things that are lightweight but huge in volume, one of them is sachet, the other one like plastic straws or other small plastic things, they are designed to be, they are actually logistically troublesome, because when you buy things for recycling, you do it by weighing it in kilograms. But when you transport it, you measures the volume of the transportation cost, right? So this doesn't add up. And sometimes it's really difficult to compress everything to make a good volume to transport it. And for sachet, it's just not doable. And also, when you look at the facility in the report, the location of the collection points from the waste bank to the facility is really far. That makes things even costlier. And the other thing is the quality of the sachet. I think they assume that when they collect sachet, they will get good qualities. But in fact, when they get the sachet, they get all type of sachet with all type of problems with contaminants, sizes, types, and also other brands. It's not only Unilever sachet, but also other brands sachet, right? And the last one, that the sachet collection requires stimulant packages, which are distributed through the waste bank and the NGOs, which you can find in the report. So that makes a sachet collection very costly. Fourth, that there is the problem of cost. So when we collect this, we see this as a recyclable item, right? And the fact is, sachet is priced very, very low. When a waste collector, waste picker, waste worker, they collect it per kilogram for a polypropylene cups or bottles, they can sell it for 4,000 rupiah, Indonesia rupiah, per kilogram. And when they clean it, like shred it, separate the caps, the labels, they get 8,000 to 10,000 Indonesia rupiah per kilogram. But for sachet, it's really low. So if you see this flow of material per kilogram of sachet, it requires, they pay for 100 rupiah from waste picker to the waste bank. And for the waste bank to send to another central or bigger waste bank, they pay for 500 to 700 rupiah. And when they send it to the shredding companies, it's only 1,000 rupiah. And from the waste picker perspective, imagine collecting this light-weighted sachet until they reach this 1 kilogram point. How many sachet do you need to collect to get that? So it's not viable. It's not a good economy. But yeah, they keep pushing it because first, they have educated the customers from waste banks. Second, Unilever promised to give some kind of incentives if they collect sachet. And the last one is lack of transparency. I think this is the heart of the problem, because we never know what happened during that period of time from 2017 to 2021. They only make claims without clear reports, and it's extremely rare to find information. We only have recent information from Reuters reporting that it doesn't work there. They visited facility and they don't see anything. And Unilever has not made any official announcement about the closure, yet they promoted a new packaging that is claimed to be made from this Creasolv technology. Fourth, the company slipped under the radar of government regulatory system. As you read, the name is chemical recycling. It used some kind of chemicals, but since this is a pilot project located inside an existing industrial facility, we cannot find any environmental impact assessment document. There are no clear reporting made for these additional machines. So it's really unclear what's happening there, what they emit. Is it working? Do they burn it somewhere? They don't have reporting, but the findings say that they actually burn the residual waste, 40 to 60%, in an incinerator within that industrial area. And lastly, in the last 2 months in Indonesia, Unilever, in their web page of their product Rinso, the detergent the detergent product, they say that they have successfully made a new kind of packaging for Rinso, which is made from Creasolv process. So the claims and the findings that we find doesn't match up. And this is where we want to convey a clear message that Unilever is already one of the biggest sachet contributor to the world, according to brand audits. And they continuously and intentionally made these claims that they actually recycle the sachet, where in fact it's polluting the environment either to the landfill, incinerator, or other places. And it also affects livelihood of communities, especially waste worker and waste picker along the supply chain of waste management. So I'll stop there and thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Do we have questions? Or before we go to questions, Yogi, it's here. Yogi, would you like to introduce yourself? Hi, Yogi. Yogi's in the middle of a meeting. Okay. So Yogi is one of our fellows at the Penang Media Fellowship. He's from CNN Indonesia. So do we have question on the two studies? Okay, Job.
Hello po. Hi, Sir Yobel. Job here.
yeah, from Philippines ABS-CBN News. I would just like to ask regarding the chemical recycling. Is it correct, uh, based from your presentation, that they try to convert these sachets into like another type of sachet? Like they want to recycle these sachets by creating another type of sachets through that chemical recycling process? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. So yeah, they claim to use this technology to recycle sachet and recover the plastic from sachet and make another sachet. That's how they marketed it in 2018 when they launched the project. They actually show plastic pellets in the press releases, but it's not really clear whether it's coming from the Creasolv facility or not. But that's the claim.
Okay, thank you. And then follow-up question. Um, they did not melt the, what do you call this? They did not melt these sachet products. Instead, they tried to burn it. Is it correct? Or they tried?
Uh,
Okay.
Yeah, that's where the transparency issue comes. When they have this Creasolv is actually a technology imported from Germany, from Fraunhofer Institute, and the backbone technology. If you check the website, it's actually in the report. Um, they use this process of chemical recycling, which the backbone of technology is pyrolysis, like uh, making the plastic and convert it into liquid form, and the liquid form you transform it back to plastic. It's not clear whether it's smelting or not, because when we check for the environmental impact assessment, it's not there. But from what we try to track to the root of the technology source, it's used this pyrolysis technology, which actually can lead to incineration. But again, this is the hypothesis, right? Uh, we don't find any document that outline what are the exact technology. Usually, when we have environmental impact assessment, when you add a new unit or activity, the environmental impact assessment and the permit need to be updated. But the thing is, when the government of Indonesia see this, they call it as an initiative and a pilot project. Thus, it doesn't really need environmental impact assessment. That's what I personally heard from a colleague in the ministry. So yeah, they don't burn it by process, but consequences of using sachet as their material, they have residual waste, and these residual waste are the things that we find burned on the ground.
Thank you very much, Sir Yobel. And then this is very similar to my report here. It's about plastic upcycling. Yeah, and what they're trying to do here in the Philippines is they try to melt these plastic wastes and turn it into another type of plastic product. So I guess the process is kind of similar, but they're in your report they're using pyrolysis, but in my report they're using plastic extrusion. So I just wanted to share that, and I'm very, thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing, Job.
Thanks, Rob. Do you have other questions? Okay, I want to ask Shibu and Yubel, because we have reporters here. How do we link the two publications together? For example, they only have space for one article. How can we link those two articles together? And if there are stories that we want to highlight from those two reports, what are the most important things? What are the top 5 things that we want the public to know? Shibu or Yubel, whoever wants to go first.
Thank you, Sonia, for that question. I think one, see, if you look around in the Philippines or in India, maybe around the Asia Pacific region, in the last 1 year, we have seen the extreme weather pattern, right? And we all know that just because of that global warming phenomena, it's the temperature increase is slightly 0.8 degrees Celsius. Annual average temperature increase in this period is slightly point. So that 0.8 degrees Celsius have created this much typhoons or the fires, wildfires, and all these things are happening, and people are actually facing. And right now we are feeling that heat of the climate change. Right, we know that that perils right now. And still governments are like roaming around the technologies. And if you look at the kind of waste as a kind of a entry point into the climate thing. See, if you look at the reasons for climate change, it is primarily the consumption, right? It is primarily the consumer behavior. And the consumer behavior is designed by the companies, the producers, and to sell more they are packing it more. Like all this packaging, like when Yabul was mentioning about the sachet. Why sachet? Sachet is just because they want to reach out to the every nook and corner of the world, and they want maximum consumption. So this consumption along with these kind of complicated material actually contributing much to the global warming scenario. So plastic, in that sense, if you look around all the municipal waste stream, the most in the most places, the major issues are managing MLPs, multi-layer plastics. They don't know how to deal with it, and it is actually creating problem. And it is also contaminating the organic waste, which otherwise have opportunities to be utilized. So in that sense, these two materials, like the plastics as well as organic materials, are mixed together. It is a general scenario all over the places. When it is mixed together, you cannot even recycle whatever recyclable is, or you cannot recover for composting just because it is contaminated with the plastics with the kind of a complicated material. So this is the kind of a challenge right now every single waste manager or the cities or the governments who are managing waste is facing. And to solve this issue, they are coming up with the technologies like chemical recycling or waste to energy, where you burn everything together, right? So this is the kind of a challenge, and right now I think the solution should be like one, segregate waste at source and get it composted maximum. You compost it and convert that into nutrient, and reduce the use of complicated products or materials like sachets, and bring in better designs or better delivery mechanisms so that these kind of inefficient mode of distribution can be avoided. So that is a kind of a connection between the two materials, one from plastic and one from organics. And so I would say that this has to be pitched with the background of the climate change dialogue, and especially the sachet things should be discussed about the upcoming UNEA discussions around the plastic treaty. And this is where all these multinational companies are lobbying to slow down or derail the process of bringing down the consumption of plastics in packaging sector. So I think these are the two major what do you call the backgrounds where these things has to be discussed in public. And from organic, that back to nature, the organic book, the things you can highlight is composting. There are working models across global south, and especially in the Asian countries. And that is like the models in this book are mostly integrated to the city management programs. So there are models from 1 kilogram, managing 1 kilogram food waste to say several hundred tons of waste. So the technology is available and it is open and it is cheap. You need not pay any royalty for it. So when a solution free of cost is available, which can be made, like you can like customize locally, the governments are spending millions of dollars on high cost waste to energy projects, and where they compose these materials, dry it up, and then burn it. So this is a kind of a what you call illogical thing happening. So we can actually focus on these issues to actually reach out to the public. Thank you. Thank you. I just leave that space for Yobal to comment.
Yeah, Thanks, Shibu. And echoing to what Shibu said, the problem, the heart of the problem is within the economic system. When we see sachet as a waste problem, then the solution will be to dump it somewhere and make it clean, unseeable, right? But when we see it as an economic problem, which means a production and consumption issue, then the thing that we need to invest in is design, better design. As I presented before, when everyone tried to work a way to make sachet recyclable or do something with it, the design it's problematic at first because when you collect it, you have this is not talking about treatment. This is only talking about collection of sachet. It's very difficult, costly, challenging to collect sachet. Not forget to mention there are thousands, I think, or hundreds different type of sachet with color, and this color have heavy metals in it usually. So this is a design problem at heart. So what we want to do and what we want to ask you to write is to reveal the story that these big companies, the FMCGs, that make use of national loopholes, right? Because they are multinational companies, they can benefit from loopholes of policy in Indonesia, and in India, in Philippines, and make things work there. One of the project is Creasolv chemical recycling. This is a distraction from solution. Organic waste is definitely a major problem because of the methane emitted, but also plastic is a huge problem. If you see, if you see in the UNFCCC or the climate talks last year in Glasgow, Unilever is actually support as like the supporter of this climate talk. The fact is they are producing plastic more than ever. In 60% of that in Indonesia are sachet. They produce like thousands of sachet per day in one city or even more, and they only collected a very small fraction of it, and it does not really recycle in a way, and they call it a success story. So when we buy into this story, they have successfully distracted us from the real solution, which is to redesign the system, go to refill, reuse, and locally sourced product. Because at the end, we are buying packaging for sachet, not only the content of the sachet. And second, I think it's important to call out for real investment, because when we invest in this type of pilot, unproven project imported from the global north, this distract our funds, our limited funds, especially during this difficult time, to invest in real solution. Imagine if we can use the same amount of money to deal with organic waste through a simple means of composting, or put incentives in local refill system that need that money to scale up their project. So I think that's where the story needs to be tailored, and also the message that need to be conveyed is that this is a distraction and not a solution. Thank you.
When you build. So Kao Lily from Vietnam News is also here with us. Kao Lily, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, nice to meet you
So,
guys again. Yeah, I have I don't know what to say. That's nice to meet you again because I missed so many things. So that heard everyone talking, and I know it's about the statue, right? And it's also the topic that I really concerned. And I also want to write a story about this. So maybe this conversation will help me to have more information. Yeah, so please keep continuing.
Thank you. Do we have other questions? Some journalist friends, or maybe Ben, you have a question?
Yeah, it's my question is for you, Bill. I just needed a little backgrounder on the Creasolv experiment. At first, was the Indonesian government supportive of the idea, or were they reluctant about it? And 2 years after, how are they reacting to it now?
Yeah, what I'm about to say, there is no formal document about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's from word of mouth.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the transparency issue is there. But from what I heard, my senior came from environmental minister in Indonesia, and they have this plastic reduction roadmap for producers, which include these FMCGs, but they don't really tie or oblige all companies to prioritize reduction in terms of redesign, right? So they can choose whatever means to reduce plastic. One of them is recycling. So with that kind of spirit and legislation in place, they accept almost all type of, they call it innovation made by corporation, companies, private sector, such as incinerator. Small scale incinerator is prominent in Indonesia and also other countries, I believe, and including chemical recycling. Um, this is again not a formal statement, but from what I heard, they allow Creasolv to start their pilot project because they think it's better than doing nothing. That's how the government position themselves. But when they are asked, civil society like the Alliance for Zero Waste Indonesia asked, "Where's this document environmental impact assessment? Uh, what's the reporting?" They cannot answer it. So there is this dilemma between the government want to try and innovate with the help of corporations and private sector, but there's also this capacity issue within the government that they don't understand the technology and they don't try to understand the technology before implementing it because they are so desperate to look for a solution to deal with sachet or other non-recyclable waste. This is also the same thing then and others when we see in Indonesia there is this in 2019 the government of West Java province they made a contract with um, global node companies called Plastic Energy. The claim is to convert plastic, not residual plastic waste, into fuel. And the fact after almost 3 years now, the facility is not there. It's not going. It seems there's a lot of problem again because of the collection, the cost, the problem of design of sachet and other multi-layer packaging. So yeah, I think that's in general sense how the government position themselves and react to this innovation, including Creasolv.
Thank you. That makes a lot of sense now, including waste incineration.
I have a question from Ian in the chat box. So we know of Indonesia where plastic sachets make 16% of plastic waste. What about the Philippines and Malaysia? Do we have figures?
I'm trying to look for the figure in one of our report, but I'll try to reach out to you if I find one, because there is no systematic approach on how to, detect how many sachets in the environment. I myself is an environmental engineer, so I know how to make a waste audit for a proper report. What I can tell you is to get the data of specific data of how many sachet kilograms of it from the ground is very difficult. To do one research on waste analysis or characteristic study, we need at least 2 weeks on the field and mobilize for a very detailed like 50 to 100 category of waste. Perhaps we need like hundreds of volunteers to help us with it. So it's not visible. I once made one for a very small government unit in Indonesia. It cost like 100 million rupiah only for that study. So if we want to have a full coverage of one city or nation, um, it must be an estimation. So yeah, I don't have an exact answer, but I hope that gives you a better picture of how difficult is that to collect this information.
There's a report by the World Bank that estimates that the Philippines consumes about 163 million pieces of sachets every day. You can have an idea of how much plastic waste there is in the Philippines.
Thanks, Dan. And to add to that, when we talk about waste management, they are not talking about units. They talk about kilograms, right? So we need to convert these units to kilograms and make sure how many is there outside in the environment and how many is collected. So there is this discrepancies in between consumption and production. So when you ask how many sachet is there, the question would be which point of view are you looking for? Is it from the waste management perspective or consumption? Ideally, this would match up the number, right? But usually they don't because most of them are leaking to our sewerage and rivers and other places. So it doesn't add up usually.
Can I ask something? Do you know in Vietnam we are not I mean we have not have any regulation or rules about collect such or anything like that. But recently the government and the Zero Waste Vietnam proposed the application of EPR, Extended Producer Responsibility. So I want to ask us if that's the principle go into active, then can it have to reduce the use of sachet? I mean, of course, there could be not maybe specific condition or rules in the EPR, but maybe it somehow regulates or force producer to reduce the use of maybe plastic or sachet in their products, right?
Shibu, do you want to give your perspective from India?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, in India, like see, there is not much like actually in India we have this plastic waste management rules. So when this rule was evolved, it was evolved around regulating the quality of carry bags, and then it advanced into the level of again like modifying the quality, the thickness, things like that. And in one time, like it was in 2011, when the plastic waste management rules have been modified, they just included that MLPs, multi-layer plastics. It's mostly the sachets because the kind of consumer products. And the rule wanted it to be phased out in 2 years. So that should have happened in 2013 or 2014. So that was the rule. And what happened was that like just the rule was published in the Gazette, in the government Gazette, in India Gazette. After I think, so the argument for eliminating multi-layer plastics is that in the rule it was defined plastics which cannot be recycled or which cannot be recycled should be eliminated. So that was the kind of a line. And MLP was specifically mentioned in that rule. But the companies, especially the plastic lobby, was so smart. So they went to the ministry and get an amendment notice, and they put in another definition, another term into the rule. Recycling and recovery. Under the category of recycling and recovery, they just included thermal processing. Like if you can recover energy by burning it, it is as good as recycling. So in that sense, no plastic is unrecyclable. Like any plastic which even cannot be recycled, you can burn it and then if you can take out some heat energy from it, so it has to be considered as recyclable. So non-recyclable category was eliminated instead of multi-layer plastics from the country. So this is the way industry plays around. So banning or like bringing in a kind of a regulation on these kind of, it's actually kind of a menace, this packaging material, especially the MLPs, multi-layer plastics, which is a kind of a menace, and it is not at all economically viable for waste pickers or the people working in the sector to collect and sell it. And the recent trend is that though the companies, especially the brand owners, they know that this is going to be a kind of an issue for them. So instead of, they don't want the government to come in and bring in some restrictions. So they are creating some voluntary standards. Now, they are not at all willing to withdraw their products. Instead, they are using their CSR funds. Like CSR funds means Corporate Social Responsibility Fund. It's a kind of a charity activity. They are funding that money to organizations to collect these kind of materials, like the sachets or those plastics. And so they buy it, and send it to the cement kilns to burn it, so that it do not create a problem for the waste managers. So they do it here and there, like in major cities, and couple of tons maybe per day. And they claim that we are funding now. MLPs are not a problem, or sachets are not a problem, because the industry is paying for efficient collection and disposal. So this is their tall claim, but it doesn't happen. They are actually like to show a kind of a quantity of plastics to be burned. Like after burning, you don't know whether it is MLP, whether it is sachet, or whether it is PET bottle. So based on the market value of the scrap market value of different types of plastics, the easiest way is to just you buy in bulk from the scrap market, whether it is like, it may not be what you call the sachets, because nobody is willing to pick sachet from the street and sell it for, say, a minimum amount. So they just burn some plastics in the cement kilns and claim that, okay, we have managed this much tons of sachets. And this is the issue right now we have. So in reality, no major brand owners, especially Unilever in India, or ITZ or Nestle, all these brands are not at all willing to reduce the use of sachets for dispensing their products. Thank you.
If I may add, I'll try to make it slow because I know this complexity of such a issue. First, when we say EPR, we need to understand the root of EPR. EPR is designed from a principle called polluter pays principle. So in a way, if we see it in one angle, it's like a permit to pollute, as long as you be responsible along the life cycle of the product. And when we say along the life cycle of the product, that should be clear. What are we talking about? Because what we've seen in practice, they only talk about collection of waste and take it back somewhere, which is not clear. In my case, it's Creasolv, right? And the fact that plastic pollutes even before it becomes a product and a waste is the biggest dilemma for us. Because when they called, like Shibu said, build a CSR program, a take-back program, like for Indonesia, for the Creasolv project, they make this CSR program with Waste Bank to collect the sachet and bring it to an unknown facility with unknown technology and called recycling. That's a dilemma. And that does not address the other part of the story, which is a continuous production. For a simple illustration, imagine the EPR aim for 5 tons per day collection, and they assume it will be recycled, right? But then in their internal company plan, they plan to produce like 10 times more in the next 10 years of sachet. Will that add up? Will we have the momentum to make this EPR work for that enormous amount of sachet that will be produced in the next 10 years. So EPR in a way can be a good tools, but the things is we don't know the details. Which life cycle are they covering? And if they cover one aspect, for example, the take back system, taking back from the waste management to the recycling industry, what are the recycling technology, right? Who pay for the collection costs? Usually what they do is to put the burden to customer or to other institution like government for the collection costs. That's what happened in Indonesia. There is this plastic company association that push their narrative to change EPR into ESR. So it's not producer responsibility, but stakeholder responsibility, meaning they try to extend their responsibility to collector, to consumer, to other recycler, to government. So they make this problem, oh, this is our problem, not the problem that is sourced from the company itself. Again, I will put an emphasis that the heart of the problem is the design of sachet itself. So EPR can help, but without a plan to phase out this bad design at the first place, it won't work. That's my standpoint.
No. Okay, thank you. Thank you, guys.
You have other questions?
Can I ask a question?
Yes, Dune, please.
Since we have amazing reporters in the room or in this Zoom room, I wanted to ask about writing a story or telling a story about a powerful corporation like Unilever Indonesia, because one thing that made me really, oh, my camera was off, sorry. One thing that made me really nervous about this Creasolv case study is that Unilever is so powerful that they might sue us or sue some of the interviewees that helped us prepare this case study. So we had to consult a lawyer and remove all the names of the interviewees in the report, and also used only the initials of the authors, not revealing anybody's identities who contributed to writing this story, right? So I just wanted to get a tip from reporters who work on, exposing the wrongdoings of powerful entities like, big corporations like Unilever. And if, using initials is the way to go, or, what are other ways to protect the safety of the resource people who contributed to the story. So that's my question. Any tips will be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Tips from our journalist friends here. I'm going to start with Ian. Ian? Who else wants to respond? Maybe Job? Can you give us tips? Because I remember when we initially wanted to publish this report, we wanted to do an exclusive in one media outlet in Indonesia. So the reporter got so excited about this report because it's big, but then he tried to interview someone from Unilever and Unilever was not responding. So finally his media outlet told him we cannot release this report without Unilever being interviewed. So how do you go about those things? How do we get this published? Because we know the stories are true. We have sources. We have an investigative reporter who went there and covered the story. So how do we do this? Oh, Lily is smiling. So help us. How do we
Actually,
publish this? Adi is
this
here.
will be a very difficult issue because I think everywhere is the same. Is depend on our government, on our policy, and so many things. And the one who decide to publish the stories is our chief editor, right? So of course, if it's against the benefits of the company, of the government, and yes, I really this I really don't know what to do. But I think if we want to public it, and maybe we can choose not public on our website, but choose media. We have the social media is really developed right now. So Facebook, WhatsApp, Twitter, maybe it's going to be a good shot for to post to publish this, and from that we can raise awareness and raise maybe people concerned about the problem. And from that point of view, maybe our government and other public servants maybe will get interest in the topic. Yeah. I will mute now. Maybe.
Raising his hand.
Yeah, I think it's not a kind of a response to my friend. It's basically in the media or in journalism, generally what we used to say, like I'm also was part of this kind of media work. See, creating a debate when that subject is not in the public debate, like that is called revolution. Like you have to put all your energy, like it is not like even it is not at all being it is not visible in the community, or it is not nobody is there to discuss it, but and it is a challenge that you to get it discussed and debated in public with a kind of a news, a kind of a feature. That is a kind of a one of the major challenge for any reporter or journalist. And there are some smart reporters who does it, like out of the blue they just bring in that subject. Maybe the one strategy they use, I have seen in many of these cases, like one they use is that they just take a study from somewhere else, like even outside their country, but they relate it to the scenario, like maybe the brand, like in this case the brands are same in the countries, or the issues are almost same. So they just narrate the story outside and then pose some questions about, okay, what will happen. So this is a kind of a precursor to the following debate, and then there will be follow-up stories. So this is one way of doing it. And the second way, it's bit kind of a corrupted way, which we say corrupted way because when there was no social media, we used to help our senior, like, or even the journalists to create the demand for that story. So how do you create the demand for that story? See, in every newspaper, like I am from a state in India, Kerala, where the newspaper density is so high. Like every single person reads minimum 3 newspaper a day. And in newspaper, there is an interactive column called a letter to the editor. So where people can send in their questions or their responses. And interestingly, this column is one area which is being looked very closely by the government. So in the government public relations department in Kerala or in any Indian state, they have a public relations department within government, and the government actually scans these people's responses on the newspaper. And there is officers assigned to it, so they cut the newspaper, the responses, and file it with the concerned ministry. For example, if there is a concern comes on the issue of roads, and that news comes in, then it goes to the minister's office. So actually, if you can increase that number of concerns in that column, that actually creates a pressure both for the what you call the editor and for the ministry or for the government. So we used, as a campaigners, we used that space very effectively. Like it was just 15 paise per postcard to write something. So we do a kind of a what you call secret campaign or lobbying with our friends to get them write about a specific issue from and ask them to post from different places and to different newspaper. So suddenly for next 1 week or next a month, you will see random comments or concerns or questions appears in the newspaper on a specific subject. So that actually, it's actually manufactured demand. It's a corruption, but our focus or our goal is something very clear. It is for public interest, so it can be done. So actually, it gives that kind of it creates a kind of an environment to place a story. So this is so there are two ways. One, you take the challenge and then somehow like manage your story to place in or customize it to the local context, or play around with the local activists to create this demand. So this is a kind of a comment. It's not at all a response to what I think Kawalili from Vietnam News said. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Rahul. So we have here. Okay, Dun, go.
Are we short on time?
No, okay.
I just wanted to try to summarize what I heard. So we heard that to avoid legal risks, we could use social media instead of traditional media, because the legal risk might be lower for a Twitter post or a Facebook post compared to a fully written news article, right? And then what Shivu was mentioning is to create an environment so that there's more demand for that kind of story. And so it makes the corporations, it makes harder for a corporation to target an individual, right? If there's a critical mass asking about the questions and raising concerns about certain topics, then it's harder to react from that corporation. So is that what you were saying, Shibu? I just wanted to get it correctly.
Yeah, even social media can be a kind of a space to create that kind of a pressure or the ambience. Like generally, see all these articles or maybe stories get a kind of a momentum when it is placed on a kind of an ambience. So you create an environment. Yeah, like earlier days we used that editor's column, that is the letter to the editor column. But nowadays you have social media, and social media can be a place where you can actually create this kind of a debate with your friends, and so that actually creates a proper environment to place a story in the mainstream media. The problem with social media is that the social media stories are not much seen, especially in India. It is not much seen with a kind of a credibility. The credibility is always with the print media and with the conventional television channels. So the social media discussions can be a kind of a catalyze, like it can actually catalyze the stories, or it can actually give the background for the stories to be properly positioned in mainstream media.
Okay, thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you. So we have with us another of our fellow, Adi Marcela. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, sorry for being late because actually I've just get online again after my cell phone battery is died. So sorry for being late, and have a happy new year for everybody, and thank you for joining this reunion. And I'm so glad that Gaia can release the new investigative report. So I think it's quite interesting, and like Shibu said, it's quite good for you from Gaia person if you also can share about the report using the social media for Indonesian journalists and also activists and also the environmental enthusiasts. They will try to engage more with using the social media, because this report involving the Unilever, one of the great advertiser for mainstream media. So I think it's quite hard to get a report or continuous story from local media, especially from East Java, because the location from the project Creasolv is in the East Java. I think it's quite challenging for the newsroom or media organization to write a story about it, but don't to send this link about the report to other journalists who have concern in environmental issue. So it's so sorry for being late, but I think it's a good reunion. Thank you, Sonia and everyone.
Thanks, Adi. So Adi is one of our fellows from the Philippine Media Fellowship, the first one, the one in Dumaguete, and also a speaker in our Penang Media Fellowship. Do we have other questions? Questions about the report or questions for our journalist friends here? Silence mean no more questions. Especially from our Philippine Media Fellows, I know you're still writing your stories. So if you have questions from our speakers here, this is the time to ask them. Yabel and Shibu and Dun are always busy, so so ask them now. No more questions. Dan, do you have questions?
None at the moment.
Not at the moment.
Mhm.
So yes, Yabel and Shibu, anything else that you'd like to add or even Dun? None? Okay. Okay, Shibu.
I think the age in which we are living actually demands a lot from the fourth estate. If you look around what is happening at the global policy forums or the policy making, like right now, I don't think there is a kind of a national policy or space for national or local kind of a policy and strategy, because everything is being dictated at the global level. The spaces like World Economic Forum or with the international financial institutions, because they act like literally dictate the policies around resource utilization and including governance, and like they influence the local governments and the national governments. So in this scenario, the public, especially the people whose future is being compromised, and they actually need a kind of a support. And most of these decisions, the policy decisions coming from the north, is going to create problems for the people on the ground, and they are helpless, and it is going to hurt mainly environmental health and environmental justice. So this is the kind of a scenario we are facing right now, especially in the global south, in Asia Pacific region. And it is the fourth estate who can actually like help people to gather around and at least to raise their voice for their rights. So this is all, it's a kind of a question about survival, and it is all about survival, and people need that support, and the voice of people need to be amplified. And though we think that, okay, we are in a kind of a digital world where information is free and it is freely accessible, but yes, the information is freely accessible, and that information is decided by somebody else. So we don't get the real picture, or we don't get the real information which we need to decide our future or to make our better future. And this is the place where the conventional media can play, especially the journalist-driven or the journalist-driven news media can actually play a vital role in bringing people together to form movements, or to form, like, to make the voice clear, louder and clearer, so that it can reflect in the policies on what you call the natural resource use and environmental health and justice. So I appeal to all of you, especially the people who are passionate about media, and this is the time to plant stories. I would use that word, plant the stories that will actually alert people. See, that is our responsibility as a media person. It is our responsibility, it is our duty to inspire people and to alert people and even warn the governments, like whenever they are getting into the wrong side. It is the fourth estate as a kind of a whistleblower. So please do help the communities locally, and at the same time, please help them to get connected at the global level, the global scenario. And if you look around, there are these kind of trends. Like if you look at the trends, at the global level, communities are organizing themselves. They are like self-organized movements are coming up in this sense, and consolidating them or connecting them together also gives them hope to fight for a better future. So there the media comes as a kind of a they can take the role of a facilitator or a kind of a catalyst or a kind of a mentor for a better future. So let us work together for a better future where we care for environmental health and justice. So that's what I have for you, the journalists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shiva. I like the metaphor about planting this story. It's like the perfect metaphor for environment NGOs and environment journalists working together. So a few announcements. We have a webinar on composting on January 27th. So this is when we will talk about all the different types of composting for different settings. And then the 2 reports, we will send it to you. And moving forward to 2022 and beyond, we have scheduled 2 media fellowships. The first one is still Southeast Asia Media Fellowship, but for science reporters, this will be led by Break Free from Plastic. And then the second one, we're hoping to do this. This will be South Asia and East Asia Media Fellowship. So we're hoping that we will be able to invite some of you there to talk and be one of the speakers. And then next slide. Okay, and for this year, we're planning to have a dedicated microsite for the media fellows, and also we just launched our Telegram channel. So if you want to follow stories from Gaia Asia Pacific, so please look for us at Gaia Asia Pacific News. And that's it. Any other announcement from the team? Also, so this is our team. So that's me, Dan, and then we have our Plastic Free Filipinas Project Communications Officer, and we're still looking for our Gaia Asia Pacific Digital Communications Associate. So I'm job posting here. So if you know someone, please connect them to us. We really need a good digital person. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining the reunion and the launch of our 2 reports, and Happy New Year. So just reach out to us for anything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.
Thank you,
Nice
everyone.
to see everyone.